Tourniquet use should only be used when really needed. So the idea of a tourniquet is to compress, to apply circumferential compression in order to stop the bleeding.
Hello mga kaibigan, ako po si Gods Pinoy at ngayong araw meron tayong importanteng topic na pag-uusapan. Alam ko sanay kayo sa mga gun videos natin pero ang pagiging prepared ay isa din sa tingin ko mahalagang matutunan natin. Ngayong araw matututo tayo ng isang potentially life-saving knowledge in case of emergency kung masugatan tayo tulad ng mga gunshot wounds, stab wounds, or simpleng wounds lang. Paano ba ang pwede natin gawin? Kasama natin ngayon si Doc AA of Blades and Bullets. He is also an orthopedic surgeon at isang Filipino martial arts practitioner. Hi Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you po for being with us today. So, trauma care. I believe magkakaroon kayo ng course sa Blades and Bullets. Pwede mo ba kami bigyan ng konting background tungkol sa upcoming course nyo?
Okay, just to give an idea on the trauma care fundamentals courses that we're giving. So it's a series of courses which focus on specific topics. So the first one that we're giving is the bleeding control course. So what are you going to learn in the bleeding control course? Number one, how to identify non-life-threatening and life-threatening bleeds. If it's non-life-threatening, such as minor cuts, okay, abrasions, okay, konting gas-gas, how do you treat it? Later, we'll also talk about the life-threatening bleeds. So these are large volume bleeding due to major accidents, okay, falls, vehicular accidents, edge weapons, okay, knives, hacking, stabbing, gunshot wounds even. We will teach you how to apply pressure, how to then wound pack if needed. If pressure does not work, you apply wound packing. And if still that does not work and there's still large amounts of bleeding, we may use a tourniquet. If the situation really calls for a tourniquet. That's what the course will cover. So yeah, that's basically the overview of what they're going to learn in the course.
Okay. So Doc, bakit yung mga ordinary Filipino citizens, bakit importante na matutunan nila yung mga bagay na ganito?
So it is important for just normal people, regular civilians, to know how to control and treat, or not even treat, just control bleeding. Why? Because whoever is around the area when the accident happens are the potential people who can help control the bleed before emergency medical services arrives and before the doctors arrives. Okay, we don't expect you to treat the bleeding. No, we just need you to stop or even just slow down the bleeding so that we can do our jobs better.
Okay, so Doc, na-mention mo kanina yung mga types of wounds. Ang Doc, ang gunshot wounds.
Alright, so gunshot wounds, so these are already weapon-specific type wounds. Okay, so weapon-specific type wound, obviously gunshot wound, it's caused by any projectile. We have hacking injuries, which are caused by bolos. No? These are big, heavy, handed hits, no? Which I actually saw a lot in my training in Bacolod. For weapon-specific even, well, ice pick injuries are technically punctured wounds, okay? But you see that a lot. Very small entry wound, but patient is in difficulty breathing or really rapidly deteriorating. So again, weapon-specific type wounds also has its own category. But basically, what I told you before is the general umbrella.
Doc, meron tayong mga items ngayon.
Yes.
Pwede mo ba kami bigyan ng konting
Sure.
instructions?
Sure. What we're going to do now is just go through the different general principles of basically how to control bleeding. This is our wound substitute, or the what represents a wound. Okay, we see a hole. So when you see bleeding, you identify it's bleeding. You may use gauze, or if you don't have gauze, you can use any clean t-shirt or any cloth. Obviously, if you have access to gloves, let's use gloves. So, let's say you already determined that the scene is safe for you to intervene. You identify if there's bleeding. Okay, there's one wound and there's blood coming out. You put on your personal protective equipment, your gloves. Okay, always protect yourself first before helping, because if you don't and you come in contact with infected blood, you create another patient, which is yourself. So you put yourself in there. Now, we're going to use, first, let's use gauze. You can get 1 or 2 pieces of the gauze, just enough to cover the wound. So maybe I would like to fold it over just to make it thicker. If you can fold it over and still cover the wound, that will be great. Okay, thicker area for more absorption. And then I apply direct pressure. I hold. If I hold and I put direct pressure, and then you can see the bleeding has stopped, there's no more bleeding, you have achieved the bleeding control. And just keep the pressure there. And then people ask, Doc, how much time should you put it there? Since you're the first responder and then you're not really that medical professional, just keep it there until the emergency services arrive so that you're sure that it doesn't bleed out. No? Our clotting will happen around average 3 minutes. Okay, if it's smaller wounds, just keep the pressure. Okay, now, you apply the pressure and you see that it's still seeping a lot. Oh, there's still a lot of problems. Then maybe you want to move on to wound packing. So wound packing, basically it's really easy. I will use gauze. I'm gonna open it up. Reach in the wound as deep as possible. Put your finger in there and slowly alternate packing. And that is literally wound packing. You really need to get in there to fill in the negative space. Oh, naubos. Get another one and do not let go of the pressure. Start packing again. Pack. Okay, pack. And you see that? It's filling up. Oh yeah, there you go. Now you filled it. Then I get this and pack it. And hold. Wait for emergency services to arrive. If you don't have gauze, okay, let's remove everything. Okay, you may use any clean t-shirt for example, this one. I'll fold it. Okay, put it over. That's your direct pressure. If it's still bleeding, thin it out. Choose one end. Slowly pack. And really get everything in there so that the pressure will build up. Fold a bit. And hold. That's your direct pressure and wound packing with any clean cloth. The idea, again, principle behind pressure is this is a representative of our blood vessel, whether it's an artery, vein. And imagine blood flowing through there. Anytime you compress, obviously will stop the bleeding. So if we put pressure here, we are hoping that the blood vessels, arteries, veins will stop flowing. That's why sometimes the direct pressure is not enough because of the soft tissue, or this one is too deep. That's why we are putting the packing really tight here so that it fills the gap, and when you put pressure, there's enough pressure hitting this at the bottom even if it's really deep. So that's the concept of wound packing. Now we're gonna talk about tourniquet use. Tourniquet use should only be used when really needed, if you know how to use it and if it's the correct situation. Sample, you already put direct pressure, you already put wound packing, and it still bleeds. A limb, for example. Our case now will be, for example, a forearm. Okay, sabihin natin the elbow is here. The rule of thumb is, if this is the wound, you should put it, 2 finger breadths above the wound, or shouldn't go over any joint. If your 2 finger breadths ends up here, go higher. So the idea of a tourniquet is to compress, to apply circumferential compression in order to stop the bleeding, to compress, okay? And that really gets everything. The disadvantage of a tourniquet, it is also stopping blood supply to normal tissue. So that's why you really have to think, is a tourniquet is necessary for this case, no? Application of tourniquet, you just can't put the tourniquet and leave it on as long as you like. Ideal max time for tourniquet is 2 hours. So hopefully within the 2 hours, you already bring the patient to the hospital so that the doctors can do the proper releasing. Now, again, back to our case. I have a wound here, so I cannot put it on my joint. I have to put it higher. Bleeding, identify, open the tourniquet, okay? Put it on the limb that is affected, okay? Sabihin natin dyan siya. So, above the joint, okay? Then, tighten. So, I pull as tight as possible. See that? At this point, you want to get it as tight as possible. So, hindi sayang yung effort, okay, or konti na lang i-windlass. Then apply the windlass. I'm gonna do the windlass. 1, and if I can get a second one, I'll do the second one. Yes, I can do the second one. There you go. Then timestamp over. Write the time that the tourniquet was applied. Now check the effectivity of your tourniquet. If this has an open wound and used to see spurting blood and it stopped, that's a good indication. Or check the distal pulse. So the distal pulse, for example, I put it here. I check the radial artery or the ulnar pulse. If the pulses are gone, that means you provided enough compression. And then bring as quick as possible, because we want to keep this tourniquet time as low as possible. Because again, you are not just stopping blood to the affected area, you're also stopping back to all of the good tissues. Okay?
So again, thank you, Doc, for sharing all those things. Pwede mo ba sila i-invite sa...
Okay, so yeah. So guys, you're very much invited to come to our Trauma Care Fundamentals Bleeding Control. Okay, so you can see everything on our website. And aside from Trauma Care, we also offer training in applied firearms and combatives. So please come join us. We'll be very happy to have you and share with you what we have. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Doc AA. So yun po. Sana marami kayong natutunan. Salamat po pala sa ating Guns Pinoy page sponsors, Luminox and Top Gun Oil. Salamat po sa panonood. Kita-kita po tayo sa susunod na video. Ako po, si Guns Pinoy.